The blackness of space was absolute. No stars shone through the cockpit window anymore, just endless voids stretching in all directions. Commander Vexel of the Thalari Confederation sat alone, drifting in a disabled cruiser thousands of light years from any known trade route. His crew was gone, the result of a sudden attack that came without warning or mercy. The enemy had shown no face, no banner, only lasers and EMP bursts that ripped through their shields like paper. Vexel had survived, but barely. The last thing he remembered before losing consciousness was the ship's reactor sputtering out and gravity failing, leaving his body weightless and directionless like a rag doll in the dark. Now he was awake, cold, and truly alone. Systems were dead, food supplies were minimal, life support would run out in 70 hours. 70 hours of silence, stillness, and waiting to die. He tried to send out one more distress beacon, but the console sparked against his claws and went dark for good. Static, always static. The Thalari High Command wouldn't bother looking for a failed captain lost outside jurisdiction. There was no honor in recovery missions, only shame. He leaned back and closed his eyes. This was it. But then a strange noise broke through the static. Not a Thalari frequency, something cruder, less refined, ancient in structure. Vexel leaned forward and strained to isolate it. He hadn't heard a voice in nearly 2 days, and this wasn't just a signal. It was a transmission, and it was speaking a language he didn't recognize but could sense the rhythm of. A voice crackled in. Unidentified vessel, this is Captain Mallory of the Earth Coalition frigate Resolute. You're not showing IFF. Are you in distress? Vexel's mouth dropped. Earth Coalition, humans. He scrambled for the Universal Translator module, dusty, rarely used, and nearly forgotten. It buzzed to life weakly, translating the transmission with a grainy undertone. I repeat, this is Captain Mallory. We're reading low-power signatures. Do you require assistance? Vexel swallowed his pride. His people considered humans primitive, a scattered, violent species that had only recently entered deep space with barely functioning warp tech. Thalari schools taught that humans were brash, unpredictable, and not worth diplomatic effort. But now, alone and dying, Vexel didn't have the luxury of prejudice. He reached for the comms panel, praying it would power up just long enough. Yes, he croaked, voice dry. Help, I need. Static swallowed his words. He banged the panel. Help me, I am alone. Silence. A full minute passed, and then, we've got you, the human voice said, this time clearer. Hold on, we're bringing you in. He stared out into the void, and then it appeared. A sleek silver vessel broke through the dark like a ghost. It wasn't elegant like Thalari ships, but it was solid, all reinforced hulls and patched armor. It looked like it had survived wars, a ship built for survival, not grace. It anchored itself beside his cruiser, a docking arm extended, and a harsh clunk rang through the hull as the connection was made. Vexel hesitated. What if they took him prisoner? What if this was some trick, a trap? But then again, what did he have to lose? The airlock hissed and warm light flooded in for the first time in days. He stood, legs trembling, and stepped toward it. The humans had found him, and nothing in his life would ever be the same again. The airlock door slid open with a metallic groan, and Vexel squinted against the sudden brightness. Warm air rushed into his dying ship, bringing with it the scent of metal, oil, and something else, life. He staggered forward, muscles weak from starvation and atrophy. As his clawed feet crossed the threshold, he was met by 3 humans in dark blue suits, their helmets off, eyes alert but not unkind. One of them, a tall woman with deep brown skin and a scar running down her cheek, stepped forward. I'm Captain Mallory. You're safe now, she said, her voice firm but not aggressive. Vexel blinked, barely registering her words through the translator strapped to his chest. Safe? That word had almost lost meaning. He gave a slow nod. Thank you. The second human, a man with a wide frame and orange-tinted glasses, handed Mallory a small data pad. She scanned it quickly and then glanced back at Vexel. Thalari, right? We've seen a few of your kind out near Deneb space. Never this far into the outer reaches. What the hell were you doing out here? Vexel hesitated. Should he tell them the truth? That his ship was part of a Black Ops surveillance mission tracking illegal warp? That they were attacked by an unknown assailant, one that even Thalari High Command didn't officially acknowledge? If he told the humans too much, he risked being treated as a spy, but withholding could be just as dangerous. He settled on part of the truth. We were on a scouting mission, we were attacked, I don't know who or why. Mallory studied him for a moment, then she nodded. Fine, we'll talk more once you're stable. Come on, medbay's this way. They led him through the ship. The corridors of the Resolute were far from polished. Wires dangled from open panels, floors creaked, and rust edged some of the bulkheads. But there was an energy here, something raw and honest. People passed by, giving him glances, some curious, some wary. One soldier actually nodded at him. No sneer, no disgust, just observation. Humans didn't fear easily, Vexel realized. Or maybe they were just too used to chaos to care. Inside the medbay, a young medic scanned him with a handheld device, murmuring something about dehydration, low protein levels, and muscle breakdown. A nutritional IV was administered quickly, and a warm blanket was draped over his shoulders. He closed his eyes, letting the heat sink in. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, he didn't feel like he was dying. Hours passed. Eventually, Captain Mallory returned, pulling a chair beside his bed. "Mind telling me what really happened out there?" she asked. "You're the only ship we've seen in this region in weeks, and that damage, your ship was hit hard." Vexel looked at her. There was no malice in her tone, just curiosity mixed with caution. He sighed. "We were tracking a rogue signal. It moved like a ship but didn't broadcast anything, no comms, no ID. When we got close, it attacked. No warnings, no demands, just silence and fire." Mallory raised an eyebrow. "Pirates. No too klein, too calculated." There was a long pause. "We've seen something like that too," she finally said. "Back in Sector 7, took out an entire cargo convoy without a trace. No survivors, just gone." Vexel sat up straighter, so it wasn't just us. "Nope," she said grimly, "and it's getting closer to human space." He swallowed hard. A new silence fell between them, heavier than before. "Why did you save me?" he finally asked. "Your people, they don't trust mine." Mallory chuckled, though there was no humor in it. "Because you were alive. That's reason enough for now. Besides, we've got enough enemies without turning away the ones who might know what we're up against." She stood, hands on her hips. "You're part of this now, Vexel, like it or not." He looked down at the blanket covering his lap. Human fabric, human kindness, human unpredictability. For a species his people had dismissed as crude and backward, these humans had just become his only lifeline. And somewhere out there in the black, something far worse than distrust was creeping closer. The Resolute thrummed softly as it cruised through deep space, the sound oddly comforting. Vexel sat upright in the medbay now, a few strength-enhancing injections having brought some vigor back to his limbs, though he still felt like a shadow of the commander he once was. His senses were sharper and his instincts were creeping back in. The crew gave him space, but not isolation. A young engineer, Ren, if he remembered her name, had brought him a nutrient bar earlier and even cracked a joke about digestion being more impressive than human military rations. It had been strange, being treated with casual humanity. But Captain Mallory, she was different. Hard edges, sharp words, and a gaze that missed nothing. She hadn't spoken to him again since their last conversation, but he'd caught her watching him from across the bridge more than once. Then one day cycle later, the summons came. He was escorted to the main briefing room, a circular chamber with dim blue lights, hollow screens flickering around the center table. When he entered, Mallory was already seated, arms crossed, jaw tight. Beside her stood two other officers, Lieutenant Cade, her second in command, and Dr. Marin, a cybernetics expert whose cold eyes barely hid her skepticism. "Sit," Mallory said, no ceremony, no preamble. Vexel obeyed, folding his limbs tightly to make himself smaller, an old survival habit when surrounded. She tapped the console and a hologram spun into motion, a star map. Points of red blinked across several systems, scattered but increasingly dense. "These are all reported incidents over the last 5 months. Same profile, no warning, no demands, just destruction." Another tap, a new screen. Fragments of ships, shredded metal, radiation burns that shouldn't be possible with any known weapon. "Whatever's doing this, it doesn't care who you are," she said. "Human, Thalari, Terrorix, even those Arvani trade fleets. Gone, and the pattern shows it's moving inward. Something is hunting." Dr. Marin narrowed her eyes. "Tell us again what your ship was tracking before the attack." Vexel felt the weight of every eye in the room. "We intercepted a distress beacon on a dead frequency, something ancient. At first, we thought it was a leftover probe from the first expansion wars, but then it moved. Not fast, precise, like it wanted us to follow." "And you did," Cade muttered. "Yes," Vexel admitted. "We followed, and it let us get close before it tore through us. It wanted us to see it, to report it, but we didn't make it back." Marin folded her arms. "So this thing's luring ships out on purpose." Mallory didn't respond immediately. Instead, she enlarged the red dots on the map. Every single ship destroyed was outside normal travel lanes, ships that were curious, brave, or stupid. "We think this thing is testing us, and it's getting bolder." Vexel exhaled. "You think it's artificial?" We don't know, Mallory replied, but we intercepted a similar beacon yesterday, same dead frequency, this time closer. It wants us to find it. A tense silence settled over the room. So Vexel asked, you plan to follow it? We have to, Mallory said coldly. If we don't, someone else will and they won't come back. He stared at the glowing red pulses. Then you'll die like we did. Cade looked grim, maybe, but we have something you didn't. What's that? Vexel asked. Mallory leaned forward, you. The statement hit harder than he expected. You've seen it, you survived. Maybe that's luck, or maybe there's something about you that matters to it. Vexel's throat dried, the implication was unsettling. You want to use me as bait. We want to stop this before it reaches core systems, she said, her voice sharp. If that means putting you in the line again, so be it, but you'll be part of this one way or another. Vexel stared at them. He should have said no, should have demanded to be dropped at the nearest Thaluri outpost, filed a report, and gone back to a safe desk job. But instead, a cold certainty was rising inside him. He had seen something in the darkness, and it had seen him. I'll help, he said, but when we find it, don't hesitate. Kill it first, or it will finish what it started. Mallory nodded, her expression unreadable. Then she stood, and with a silent command, the room emptied, leaving only the hum of stars and the growing whisper of something waiting in the dark. The Resolute altered course within the hour. The new destination was a dead sector, uninhabited, unmapped, and absent from most human and Thaluri star charts. The beacon was weak, buried beneath radiation waves and signal interference, like it had been meant to be found only by those desperate or foolish enough to look deeper. Captain Mallory stood on the bridge with her arms behind her back, eyes locked on the star map. Vexel stood beside her now, no longer confined to medbay. A fresh suit had been tailored for him, military-grade fabric mixed with regenerative mesh. Human craftsmanship, functional, durable, unceremonious. You know, she said, still staring at the starfield, I read about your people in the academy. Brilliant engineers, cold diplomats, arrogant to the bone. We are what we are, Vexel replied evenly. Your kind was described as reckless, emotional, and easily provoked. Mallory smirked fair. The silence between them wasn't tense, not anymore. There was a mutual understanding now, thin maybe, but present, the kind forged not from trust but from shared danger. Behind them, the rest of the bridge crew worked quietly. Scanners hummed, engines pulsed. Then Wren's voice cracked through the comms. Captain, we're entering the dead zone. Beacon source is approximately 20,000 km out, still no ID. Mallory turned to Cade. Bring us to a glide, no active scans, no lights. The lights dimmed and the engines powered down to minimum thrust. The ship fell into near silence, drifting like a ghost. Vexel felt the hairs on his neck stand. This was how it had started for him before the quiet, the black, the waiting. He stepped towards the main console. I want to monitor the passive array. Cade gave him a sideways glance, but Mallory nodded. Let him. Vexel tuned into the radiation spectrum, isolating the strange signature they'd tracked. The frequency pattern was the same as before, pulsing at long intervals, then breaking off suddenly. But this time, something had changed. He frowned. It's mimicking decay. Mallory looked at him. What? It's altering its signal to look like background noise. It's hiding itself from your systems but leaving a thin trace, a trail. Cade leaned in. Why would it do that? That's not a trap, that's a game. Vexel didn't answer. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. A new alert pinged softly. Wren whispered into her headset. Captain, we've got a heat bloom dead ahead. All eyes turned to the main view. A large object drifted in the dark. Slowly, the Resolute's passive sensors rendered it, a broken cargo hauler civilian model twisted and partially collapsed as if something had crushed it like a tin can. Its hull was scarred with blackened impact burns. No lights, no signals, no survivors. Jesus, Cade muttered. Match it with the registry, Mallory ordered. Wren typed rapidly. A few seconds passed, then her voice returned, tight and shaken. That ship left Atlas Station 8 days ago, fully crewed, no log since. 8 days, gone without a trace and now just floating, silent, brutalized, abandoned. It's showing signs of artificial tampering, Marin added, appearing from behind. The hull wasn't breached by weapons. It was pulled open from the inside. Vexel stepped closer to the screen, heart thudding. That's what it does. Mallory narrowed her eyes. You said you didn't see what attacked you. I didn't, he replied. but we found escape pods like that bent open from inside. The tension in the room turned to ice. Then the lights on the bridge flickered once, twice, then held. Cade stood from his seat. What the hell was that? No systems anomaly, Wren whispered, all diagnostic screens clear. Marin's voice was quieter now. That wasn't from us. Vexel's translator clicked suddenly, a shrill whine pouring through. Then a voice, a garbled, broken mimicry of a human tone stuttering through static like an echo from something trying to become human. Come closer, watch, learn. Everyone froze. Trace it, Mallory barked, now. But Wren's console was dark. Every system read dead, even though the ship still floated in perfect function. And then the beacon on the derelict ship blinked once, then again, then a third time, in perfect synchronization with the Resolute's internal lights. Vexel turned to Mallory, voice flat. We're not watching it anymore. She nodded slowly. It's watching us. The air inside the Resolute grew heavier, not in pressure, just in feeling, as if something vast and patient had just opened its eyes. The flickering stopped and all systems blinked back to normal, but no one on the bridge moved. The derelict ship still floated just ahead, its open hull a grotesque invitation. The signal had stopped. The mimicry had ended. But its echo still lived in every wall, every console, every breath. Captain Mallory was the first to speak. Get me a full sweep. Life signs, M fields, anything. Wren's fingers danced across the console, running passive scans. Active would expose us. Then use what you've got. Vexel's claws tapped rhythmically against the console in front of him. His mind raced. That voice, it hadn't been a true language. It was an emulation built from intercepted frequencies, maybe even scraped from distress calls and comms chatter. Whatever was behind that signal hadn't just destroyed ships, it had learned from them. It's using our dead like textbooks, he muttered. Cade turned to him. You said your crew died before the attack. How? They didn't just die, Vexel answered. They unraveled like their minds were pulled apart. Some screamed, some just stopped responding. There were no wounds, no fight, just silence. I hid in the maintenance deck for 2 days before whatever it was left us adrift. Dr. Marin added grimly, psychotronic weapons, neural resonance fields. Vexel shook his head. No tech I've ever seen. This thing doesn't kill with weapons. It kills with understanding, like it breaks what you are from the inside out. Cade scoffed, uneasy. You expect us to believe this thing thinks. Vexel stared at him. I think it listens, that's worse. Mallory finally turned from the view. Enough. If that derelict has any data left, we need it. I want an away team suited and armed in 10 minutes. Wren turned, eyes wide. We're boarding that thing. Yes, Mallory said flatly, and you're not going alone. She looked at Vexel. You're coming. Vexel hesitated, his blood ran cold, his every instinct screamed no. But something deeper overruled it. I'll go, he said, but if I say run, you listen. 10 minutes later, the boarding party assembled in the docking bay. Mallory led it herself, flanked by Cade, Vexel, and 2 Marines armed with high-frequency plasma cutters and multispectrum scanners. They wore dark red EVA suits with reinforced plating, the kind designed for combat zones, not exploration. As the airlock sealed behind them and the tether connected to the derelict, silence took hold again. Real silence. The kind that doesn't belong in space or inside machines. The kind that feels watched. The tunnel shuddered once as they crossed into the dead ship. Immediately the smell hit them. Even through the helmets, Vexel could taste it in his mouth, decay and melted plastic, blood and ozone. The interior was scorched and smeared with something dark and viscous, but what chilled him most wasn't the damage. It was the arrangement. Every panel removed with surgical precision, wires braided into strange spirals, crew quarters untouched, but chairs turned inward in perfect circles. No bodies, no signs of panic, just order. This wasn't destruction, Vexel whispered. It was curation. Keep moving, Mallory ordered, though her voice held a tremor. They made it to the bridge of the derelict. Terminals were dead, but one remained half-active, flickering weakly with stored logs. Cade hooked up a portable power core and began extraction. Marin's voice came through on the shared comms. I've got partial black box recovery, uploading visuals now. Then the screens lit up. Footage appeared grainy and warped. The crew of the derelict moved normally at first, laughing, chatting, routine comms reports. Then abruptly several crew members stopped moving, not collapsed, just stopped. Others continued as if nothing had happened. Then one of the frozen figures slowly turned to the camera and smiled. Wide, too wide, then darkness. Another log loaded, camera view from the engine room. One crewman convulsed, arms flailing. Then he began writing on the wall in oil symbols not human, not thalari, symbols like spirals and split circles repeating again and again. Then his body collapsed, but the writing hand kept moving, detached from its nerve signals, moving like something else was guiding it. The footage ended. Ren's voice cracked over the comms. "Captain, I'm detecting a spike. The signal's back and it's not from the derelict." Mallory's eyes snapped to Vexel. "It's here." Vexel turned slowly, not outside, inside. The walls began to pulse faintly. Then from deep within the derelict's hull, a new sound echoed, wet and mechanical, like breathing through a dying machine. Something had waited for them to arrive, and now it was awake. The sound grew louder, mechanical yet organic, like a heartbeat stitched into rusted gears. It echoed down the empty corridors of the derelict ship, not just vibrating through the air but crawling beneath their skin. Captain Mallory's voice cut through the comms. "Weapons up, formation tight, no one breaks line." The Marines shifted instantly, sweeping their rifles into a forward arc. Cade moved to the rear, his hand trembling slightly on his sidearm. Vexel didn't bother drawing his blade. If this thing was what he remembered, what they all feared, no blade would help. He kept his eyes on the corridor ahead, but it was the walls he feared more. They pulsed faintly, like they were breathing with them, not just around them, watching, listening. From the front of the formation, Mallory stepped forward slowly, towards the source of the breathing. "It's not moving," she said, voice flat. "No," Vexel said, "it doesn't have to." Cade's scanner suddenly lit up with static. "Captain, we've got motion, multiple pings, 6 no 8 closing." The breathing stopped, and in the silence that followed they heard footsteps, but not from in front, behind them. They turned in sync. The corridor they had come through was empty but darker now. The lights they'd activated were dimming one by one in rhythmic pulses. Ren's voice shaky over the comms. "We just lost your feed, visual blackout, you're not showing up on sensors anymore." "We're still in the corridor," Mallory snapped. "Ren, rework visuals." "I can't, it's like the ship's absorbing them, your signals aren't bouncing back." That's when the first shape appeared at the edge of the dark, just out of clear view. A silhouette vaguely humanoid, impossibly tall, arms too long, posture wrong, and where the head should have been, only a blur, like something was rejecting the human eye. Mallory raised her rifle. "Identify yourself." The thing didn't move, it simply watched or stood as if it was watching. Vexel's chest tightened. He felt the same weight as before when his crew died when they were unmade. "It doesn't respond to logic," he whispered, "or language, it reacts to attention." "What the hell does that mean?" Cade hissed. "Don't look at it." But it was too late. The second Marine, Collins, had locked eyes with the silhouette. He lowered his weapon slightly, then he screamed. His body jerked violently, like being yanked by invisible cords. His helmet cracked from within, his eyes went white, then silence. His body stood still for a moment, perfectly balanced, then collapsed. Mallory shouted, "Fall back, moves." They turned and ran back down the corridor toward the boarding tether. Lights strobed overhead now, the environment shifting subtly as they passed, like the very walls were reshaping themselves. Cade skidded around a corner, breathing hard. "What the hell is this thing?" "It's not a thing," Vexel said, chest heaving. "It's intention wearing a body. It learns what we fear and then it becomes it." They reached the docking hatch. Marin's voice cut through. "Opening the tunnel, get out now." But the hatch remained locked, lights turned red. "We're locked out," Cade shouted, hammering the panel. "No, it locked us out," Vexel growled. "It's inside the system." Behind them a low hum began, then a voice, calm, familiar. It was Colin's voice. "Don't run, stay, understand." They all turned. Colin's body stood in the hallway again, head cracked open, face slack yet speaking. "You brought the question, I am the answer." Vexel drew his sidearm and fired. Plasma tore through the body, ripping it apart, but no blood spilled, only black thread-like tendrils twisted from within, writhing before dissolving into dust. Then the hatch unlocked with a clang. "Go," Mallory shouted. They leapt through the tunnel, boots hammering metal. Vexel was the last through, sealing the airlock behind him. Cade vomited into his helmet. One Marine sobbed quietly, curled against the bulkhead. Back on the Resolute, Mallory ripped off her helmet. "Cut the tether now." Ren hesitated. "No." The tether blew and the derelict ship drifted slowly away. On the main screen they watched as it began to fold in on itself like it was collapsing through dimensions, imploding without mass. Within seconds it was gone. No light, no trace, just the void, only silence. No one spoke. Mallory sat heavily in the command chair. We poked a hole into something that doesn't want to be understood, she said, and now it knows us. Vexel sat across from her, staring into the black. No, he said quietly, it already did, we just woke it up. The ship was quiet for a long time after they cut the tether. Too quiet. Not the peaceful silence of relief, but the kind that creeps into your lungs like smoke, making it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to forget what you've seen. The crew had gone through post-boarding decontamination procedures in mechanical, almost ritualistic fashion, suits stripped, scrubbed, blood tests drawn, neural scans ran twice. Everyone passed. Everyone except Cade. Dr. Marin pulled Mallory aside in the medbay and spoke in a hushed tone, but Vexel heard them. His ears weren't like a human's. He could hear heartbeat shifts from across the hall, detect nervous tension in voice frequencies. "What do you mean, resonance contamination?" Mallory asked tightly. "He's fine physically," Marin replied. "Vitals steady, but his neural scan is off, almost like it's echoing something external. I've never seen anything like it." "Is it dangerous?" "I don't know yet." Mallory exhaled sharply and looked through the glass. Cade sat on the medbay bench, looking dazed. His eyes tracked movement that wasn't there. His fingers twitched in small spirals unconsciously. Vexel turned away. He'd seen that pattern before. His navigator had drawn the same shapes on the cockpit walls just days before she lost her mind. In the command room, the crew reviewed the recovered data logs from the derelict. The footage they had seen earlier wasn't even the worst of it. There were fragments of transmissions, half-sentient messages of panic, stuttering voices, and one clear image of a crew member trying to claw their own helmet off in a sealed chamber. Then came the whispers, low, layered in a dozen tongues at once. "Not a thing, pattern and memory. Blood is language, you are a question, not the answer." Mallory leaned over the console, eyes bloodshot. "Delete it, all of it, burn it out of the database." "You sure?" Ren asked hesitantly. "This could be first contact." "It's not contact," Vexel interrupted, stepping into the room. "It's contagion. That ship was sick with it, and now so are we." She turned to him. "You think it followed us?" "No," he said, "it never left." Mallory's jaw clenched. "What the hell is it then?" Vexel hesitated, then he stepped forward and pointed to the screen. "This signal, this mimicry, it's not communication. It's an infection vector. It doesn't need ships or weapons. It just needs your attention. The more you try to understand it, the more it changes you." Dr. Marin entered holding a tablet. Her face was pale. "We just lost Cade." Mallory's eyes widened. "What do you mean, lost?" "He's gone. 1 second he was in his room, next the door was open, but he wasn't there. There's no trace on any security cam. It's like he blinked out." "No one just disappears on my ship," Mallory shouted. Marin swallowed. "Captain, come see this." She pulled up the last cam footage of Cade's quarters. He sat on his bed, head low. Then slowly he lifted his face to the camera and smiled, too wide, too unnatural. Then static. Mallory watched in stunned silence. "That smile," Vexel nodded slowly. "That's not him anymore, that's it wearing his face." "We brought something back," Mallory whispered. "Or it let us leave so it could come with us." They stared at the dark monitor, then Ren's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, we just picked up a signal." Everyone froze. Mallory rushed to the bridge. "Show me." A familiar pulse blinked on screen. Same frequency, same pattern, but this time it wasn't coming from space. It was coming from inside the Resolute, somewhere deep in the engine core. The ship was broadcasting. Vexel's voice was barely above a whisper. "It's already seeded. It's in your systems, maybe in your people, maybe in me." The screen began to warp, distorting in soft pulses like breathing. Then the lights flickered, and that awful voice returned, split across speakers and internal comms, sounding more human now, more confident. "You hear me now, you brought me home." Mallory stared at the screen, jaw clenched, rage and fear behind her eyes. "What the hell are you?" The voice replied, calm and cruel. "I am the mirror you stared into too long." The engine room was a tomb. Red lights pulsed across the floor in irregular patterns, casting long, warping shadows that moved just a fraction too slowly, like they lagged behind reality. The air crackled with static, and every console screen and circuit board along the walls displayed one repeating symbol, a perfect spiral drawn in crude strokes spinning endlessly. Mallory, Vexel, and a small security unit stood at the threshold, weapons raised. Behind them, Ren's voice buzzed in overcoms from the bridge, shaking. Whatever it is, it's rewriting the ship's code. Not just hacking, altering, like it's teaching the ship to think differently. Vexel scanned the room. It's not inside our systems anymore, it is the system. Mallory clenched her jaw, then we kill the system. They moved deeper in. Cade's voice played over the internal speakers, soft, eerily calm. Come see, come understand, we don't die, we change. The Marines exchanged wary glances. I've got movement, one whispered, right flank, no visual. The group spun but saw nothing. Then came the humming, low, intimate, like a lullaby sung through broken teeth. And from the shadows they stepped out, figures in EVA suits, twisted, the crew from the derelict or what was left of them. Their bodies distorted, elongated limbs cracked into wrong angles but still functioning. Their faces were smeared with smiles they hadn't earned. Behind their helmets where eyes should be, only spirals spun like tiny galaxies. Vexel gripped his weapon tighter. They're not alive, they're interpreted, it's wearing their memories like a coat. Mallory raised her rifle. Permission to end the interpretation granted. The first shot rang out, striking one of the twisted crew in the chest. It stumbled backward but didn't fall. Instead, it mimicked the shot sound back at them perfectly, like a recording, and laughed, a dozen voices layered into one. The air shimmered, the lights shattered, then the room exploded into chaos. The things charged silent, fast, and wrong. The Marines opened fire, ripping through them, but for everyone that fell, two more emerged from the bulkheads like phantoms from a dream. Mallory fought like hell, firing burst after burst, but she could feel the pressure building not just around them but within. Something was pushing at her mind, whispering in forgotten tongues, trying to replace her thoughts with questions that never ended. What is your name when no one is looking? What is the shape of fear? What is memory if it lies to you? Her hands trembled. Beside her, Vexel reached the core. The main control column stood in the center, tall, black, and cracked open like a blooming flower. Wires twitched like veins. The spiral symbol pulsed at its base, beating like a second heart. This is it, he yelled. It's coiled in here. This is the infection point. Mallory tossed him a charge pack. End it. He didn't hesitate. Clawed fingers dug into the circuitry. The system screamed, actually screamed, as if it knew what was happening. Voices surged through the ship's comms, echoing down the corridors like a choir in agony. You cannot unsee, you cannot unknow, you invited me in. Vexel jammed the explosive deep into the processor, then ran. Charges set, detonation in 30 seconds. Mallory grabbed the last surviving Marine and pulled him toward the exit. One of the infected crew tried to block their path, but Vexel barreled into it, slamming it against the wall with brute force. Its smile twisted, then cracked like glass. They made it out of the engine room just as the detonation went off. The explosion didn't shake the ship, it silenced it. Instantly. No static, no voices, no flickering lights. The screaming stopped. The ship exhaled and then stillness. Back on the bridge, Ren stood with tears running down her face. It's gone, she whispered. No signal, nothing in the core, it's gone. Mallory slumped into her chair, covered in grime and blood. She looked over at Vexel, who stared out into space. Do you think we killed it? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, you don't kill an idea, you bury it and hope no one digs it back up. Silence settled again, but this time it felt different, real. Later in the ship's log, Mallory wrote, we found something in the dark, something that doesn't care about planets or politics. It only wants minds, questions, attention. We looked too long. It looked back. We won for now, but we left behind a message in our wreckage, and if someone finds it, they'll hear the whisper too. Vexel never returned to the Thalari Confederation. He stayed aboard the Resolute, quiet and watchful, because he knew better than anyone, the silence of space isn't empty.